So today I just wanted to go through some of a trial that we conducted, and as part of the MarinaLink project, a genomic validation project, and some experiences that we've had, or I've had with a few clients, and just some of the things that we've learnt from some of the parent testing and the genomics. I'll go through a bit more background about what the project was about, but there's some things that came out of the project that are, I think, quite interesting, that validates some of the reasoning behind why certain parts of the analysis with sheep genetics are done. And yeah, so where does that go? There we go. So just before I get started, just want to acknowledge Australian Innovation for funding the Genomic project and MarinaLink. So that was partly funded by the group. And so a bit of background quickly about MarinaLink. It's a group of commercial breeders, ram breeders and service providers who've come together as a result of the decline with extension officers, with New South Wales DPI was the catalyst, but we've got members across Australia and basically like-minded people like yourselves in the room. We're very much about how we can make commercial decisions based on science and research that we can see, and basically everyone's participating in that project, in that process. Moses and Son Wool Brokers and Blue Chip Livestock have provided significant financial input into a lot of the work that we've been doing, and now they actually have purchased a property so we can actually run the sheep there, which is amazing. So the genomic validation project that we set up, we originally, the collective we, had a sire evaluation running at Temora, at the research station, and we thought we'd have a go, talking to Lou Hogan, what could we do to value add to this sire evaluation. So at the time, the genomic the 50K test was being trialled, and as a lot of you would have been participating in, and we had 300. So there were 300 ewes that were progeny of 2 sire evaluations in 2011, and what we decided to do was to follow the industry recommendations, and we tested, genomic tested. 28% it was eventually what we did, 28% of the rams of the 2012 drop sire evaluation. Okay, so I've got 10 different sire groups here. Stick with me. So we did that, and as a result, we selected 10 of those rams eventually, and I'll go through a little bit more detail, and joined those to the 2011 drop ewes. One of the things, so these were joined as a syndicate, and one of the things that kind of fell out of this was joining them as a syndicate. We actually had quite a variation in the number of lambs that were actually born to the different rams within the group. And we have done the parent test over 4 years now, and we've had a very similar result in all of those years. So we've always got a dominant ram, and one that usually doesn't get very many progeny. And for me, that was quite an eye-opener, because I thought, well, the reasonings why we downgrade syndicates in sheep genetics is because we really don't know how many progeny by which sire. So for me, that was a really good point to make, and I think a really good example of why that happens. So just out of interest, so the variation was consistent over over the 3 years, and again with the what we had a look at the backup lambs that we've just had lambed down to an AI, and we've got a very similar situation again. Not quite as you know, we've got some differences happening here, and we're not quite sure what happened to those 2 rams, but you know, they were a bit shy. So again, in a backup situation to an AI program, we've got exactly the same situation happening. So the parent testing, I guess, allowed us to be able to identify exactly how many progeny per sire group. The other really interesting thing that's come out of it for me, or for everybody, is the number of twins that are by 2 different sires. So sorry, I'm pressing the wrong button all the time. Over the syndicate mates in particular, we had at least over 50% of the twins by 2 different sires. And which makes sense, because you see a small twin and a big twin, you think, oh, well, that one got more nutrition in utero and this one didn't. But actually, maybe they're actually by 2 different rams. So that again was another interesting factor that we've been able to, I guess, just find out through chance, I suppose, by doing the DNA parent testing. So I think in terms of utilising the DNA, the parent testing, we've really been able to identify, in syndicates who the sires are. It's given us, I keep pressing the wrong button. Sorry. Oh no. It must be my old slides. I actually did some others this morning, and anyway, that's all right, I'll read it out. So the full pedigree, I think, is another advantage of using the DNA parent testing. And now, Tom, I want to know where your test is cheaper than the one we can get. So yours was $15, and I'm sure we're paying $17. Is that right, Tom?
You're at the paddock, mothering up.
Oh, right. Okay. Anyway, we want your contact. U efficiency is another thing, or an area, and I know Nathan has done a lot of work in that area too. So U efficiency in terms of how many kilos of lambs that they're bringing in as a result of having the DNA parent test information. We've been able to utilise that. And for you guys that are that are mothering up at the moment, you already have that information. But for a lot of the breeders that are on a bigger scale that haven't got into that space, I think the parent testing is a fantastic tool. Being able to also have birth type and rear type, even though we can't account for any piracy, we can still have that information that's coming in. Including pregnancy scanning information that we can use. The industry was, we heard lots of advice, go out, use this parent test, and you'll be able to identify more, have more pedigree information. And so a lot of producers took that on board and have gone out and have DNA sampled syndicate animals. But what seems to have happened is that there's a bit of miscommunication, and the message was that we'll run all of our top rams in and we'll measure those. So what's happened with one example that I'd like to share with you, because I think it's quite important that we start thinking how we can utilise our DNA parent test more strategically, and so we don't muck up our data quality. So this particular flock had a number of syndicates, and these are the number of sires in the syndicates, and this was the number of rams that made it through to, I think these were I think it was a post-weaning stage before they were culled. This was the number that was DNA tested, so we've got a percentage here in the different groups. Now, one of the things that I've been talking to Karis about, and with the new Ramping Up Genetics, there's some really great tools that we can use, and one of them looks a little bit like this. Just the blue's good, okay? So here, this is a list of, and you're not meant to, don't worry about the detail. There's a list of the sires, how many flocks progeny and how many flocks have been used in. You've seen those reports. And we've got how, if it's blue, then we've got some good progeny numbers. So we've got effective progeny. What happened with taking this example, and I couldn't fit it all on the one slide. So what we've got now is we've got all of the sires, and where it's red, we've got ineffective progeny groups. So effectively what we've done is, yes, we now know the sire, but it's automatically given us, well, now they're in potentially separate management groups. We've got nothing very much to compare. So our data quality has been jeopardised, I guess, by a quick ad hoc shotgun effect of using DNA testing to identify parentage. So I guess the message is that if you're going to use DNA parent testing, you need to consider testing a particular syndicate, the whole syndicate, so that you've got effective progeny, they're being compared. We've got enough animals basically to compare. So that was something that we're very conscious of now, but unfortunately it took a couple of years to work out why the data was not looking how it should be looking, if you like. So we'd been going really well with using our syndicates, and then all of a sudden this smashed what the information that we were looking at. So are we actually looking at the right information now, or yeah? So there's lots more questions, I suppose, that have been asked. I think DNA testing, the parent testing, is a great tool. It gives us lots of flexibility. So if we use the TSU that all Flex has got, or the CRC blood card, if you can collect it at landmarking time, squeeze a bit of blood out of the tail, it's quite simple to do. It's non-invasive, and we can find out quite a lot of information. But I think under the ramifications in terms of effective progeny and how that is going to affect your data quality is really important, and we really need to make sure that we manage that well. I do think that if we had the DNA testing under $10 or $10, or to have it cheaper, would revolutionise the whole industry. I was talking to a number of growers last night, not just merino breeders, who would start testing more of their commercial flocks to validate their own size and to actually add more information in. So as an industry, we need a cheaper test. It needs to be turned around faster. The process is yep, we need it faster. And yeah, it would revolutionise, I think, everything that a lot of what we're doing. Now, what I just wanted to quickly go back and look at is, this is an overview of the genomic validation project that we did. So we took, we had who mum was and who dad was. So we had full pedigree on the 2012 drop rams. Out of that, we used just our mid-parent information to select our top 28% or 30%, which was the industry recommendation at the time. So this is this selection. That was in November. We took bloods on, so we did a 50k genomic test on those 30%, sent that away. We got the information back just before we were to mate. So it's a very tight schedule over that Christmas period. And we took the top, with the mid-parent and the genomic information, we took the top ranking ram out of each sire group. So we had 10 sire groups, and taking into consideration the visual. So they had to be structurally sound as well. So that's how we selected our 10. We also, with those rams, they were also tested and measured for all of their sire evaluation traits over for up until they were 10 months of age. So then we had weaning information from the ewes, and then virtually progeny testing those rams with those ewes. So that was basically the nuts and bolts of the project or the trial. One of the things that we looked at was, pardon me, what the ASBVs or the indexes were over time. So I looked at it over those different stages, and as a group or a team of rams, what was predicted utilising the genomics was actually what we got when we actually had done 2 assessments on their progeny. So for me, the information that tells is that for a commercial breeder, you should be very confident to go out and use this information to buy your team of rams, because what you buy, what you bring in your gate, is what you will get. So there's an opportunity there for commercial breeders then to select better indexing or rams. They can definitely justify it if they're actually getting, we know that it works, but this is at a commercial level that they're actually getting exactly the progeny are performing how we're predicting. Sometimes a number of commercial breeders might balk at paying a certain amount of money, and if we can continue to encourage them to spend the extra to buy the better genetic rams and improve their management so that we're feeding them and they'll actually perform well. It's like buying a new pair of boots. I often justify spending extra money by how many times I wear them. So if I buy a really expensive pair of boots, then I need to wear them a lot to make sure that I get value for money, so dollar per wear. So if you're buying a ram, it's the same thing. It's the number of progeny that you get from those rams that's going to justify you spending that extra money. Does that work? Works for my husband. So I think, that was really, the team of rams, there was variation and movement between the different rams within the groups, but it was definitely as a team of rams. So this is just quickly looking at, I did an AMPSIA, a sire evaluation indexes, and I compared that with what we were getting from the genomic, because at the time they were research breeding values, so it wasn't the one-step situation when we were doing the project. And there was a very high correlation, which you'd expect with the sheep genetics indexes, but there was a lower correlation with what was produced through the sire evaluation. And partly that is to be explained by there was no dam information used in the sire evaluation analysis, and no number of lambs weaned. So there's a few explanations there, but still everyone, the confidence in terms of the correlations with what was being put out to what was being delivered at the time before the one step was very, very good. So I guess in closing, there was movement for individual rams from what was predicted to what their progeny then performed, but as a team, it was very close, as you saw. And the message to commercial breeders is that they should be very confident, because they buy a team of rams. They usually don't buy a single ram. So they should be very confident with utilising the information at that level. And the parent testing, it provides excellent information that we can use, but we just need to be really careful about how we utilise that, and it's not just a shotgun approach. And as, I guess, an opportunity, instead of just doing a parent test on a sire, to look at doing a 50K test so that we actually have the added advantage of utilising the genomic information as everyone's been describing, and what the benefits are there. So I think, as a rule, look at using those to increase the accuracy, and enjoy your testing.
Thank you, Sally, and I completely agree. I want it cheaper, because for us we get parentage, poll, rear type. It's a great amount of data, but it's costing me a bomb at the moment. And I was wondering on that, we used to do the right thing and do sibling syndicates, and then when I did parentage testing, half of them would fail because the size were too closely related. Do you know if we do a 50k test on those size, will I get a better result? Will I get more matchups?
That's the advice that I've been given, and that's why we're looking at doing that as well. Because some of the times with syndicate mates, they're actually using, brothers or half sibs. So from talking to Tom and I guess they're looking at more places, I suppose, along the genome with the 50k to be able to then do that parent testing. So that's why we're going to move that way too.
So in your experience, Sally, if you're using the 15k test, I'm thinking of ET, where you've got one particular ewe is just smoking it and you keep joining her back to the same ram and you use the progeny, use the progeny back out in the paddock and lamb those lambs down together for ease of management. Those rams will be that closely related, they won't get picked up.
My understanding is that that's probably correct. So the more, I guess, I'm not sure what the right words are. No, I've lost it. So I guess the parent test is a more basic test. Is it density? Is that the right word? It's a higher density. The 50k or the 12k is a higher density, so should be more accurate. Is that?
I think it's better.
300 or 800 spots on the parent, and then we're talking about 12,000 or 50,000. So they're going to give us more opportunity to make sure that we get the parenting correct, I would think. I do think for very closely related animals, it's a lot more difficult, and the experience that we've had is the closer they are, the more potential fail or unable to make an accurate parent pedigree assessment.